Hiya, welcome back to Beer, Wood, Bigfoot, Ghost. My name's Matt, this is my channel, and I'll talk about anything that falls under one of those four categories: beer, wood, Bigfoot, ghost. Today we're going to talk ghosts or paranormal. And this is my first video I'm releasing under the ghost heading. So let me just get this out of the way and answer that one central key question that everybody asks, and that is, do you believe in ghosts? Yes, I do. And I'll tell you why. I've had personal experiences, and in this video, I'm going to talk about those personal experiences. And I think it's important to note when anybody talks about something they heard or saw that they think is ghost related or paranormal, that you talk about what it is that they're experiencing. Okay, so in the paranormal, investigative, or ghost hunting field, a lot of people talk about evidence they collected. I think the term evidence is a bit strong of a term to use when talking about the paranormal. I typically reserve the term evidence for the criminal justice system, right? That's stuff that's introduced at trial to either prove or exonerate a person's in concerning their guilt about a crime that was committed. Okay. So instead, I think you should talk about ghost or paranormal as experiences, right? Either subjective or objective experiences. And very simply, subjective is something you experienced personally, maybe something you saw or heard, whether it's in your own home, which is kind of weird, or you're out on a ghost hunt, okay? Objective would be taking those same experiences and backing them up with something, whether that's video or audio recording, or maybe two or more persons having the same experience, okay? For decades, paranormal investigators have been trying to apply scientific principles to prove that ghosts exist. And I think I'm going to do a whole separate video on the techniques that are used today, whether it's the machines or things that are designed to try to prove ghosts exist, or the kind of techniques that investigators use when they're out there in the field, whether at a famous haunted location or in somebody's home, looking for paranormal activity. Okay, so let's start with my personal experiences. These are all subjective, right? They're my personal experiences. So you can take them or leave them, right? And, when you're talking about ghosts and paranormal, it is kind of a leap of faith, right? When somebody tells you something that they saw or heard, or even if they show you video or audio that documents those experiences, there's still a little bit of a leap of faith whether you believe them or not. This first one, I'll just readily admit, could have been a nightmare. I was 5 or 6 years old. My family was living in Iowa at the time, where I was born, and we had an upstairs attic area that was converted into bedrooms for myself and my two older brothers. So my next oldest brother is 5 years older than me, and my oldest brother was 7 years older. Well, my middle brother and I shared a bed, and so one night, um, I wake up, or it's a nightmare, not sure, and I see this kind of glowing full figure walking from the entrance door to the attic slash bedroom space, stand at the foot of the bed that I shared with my brother, and then drop down and what I assume is crawl under the bed. Scared the living crap out of me. And I thought it was my brother that I shared the bed with screwing with me, right? I thought he was trying to scare me. Well, I roll over and I see he's actually in the bed and he's dead asleep. And I'm like, oh, what did I just see? Okay, so that's the first experience. And again, that could have been a nightmare, but it still stays with me today. I can picture in my mind exactly that experience uh, 55 plus years ago. So in the early 2000s, when I was probably late 30s, I joined a men's only fraternal club in central New Jersey. It was a great way to feel like I was part of the community. It was a great way to meet people. So when you're a brand new member of that club, you had to go down on Saturday mornings once a month and clean, right? So we had a full bar area where we had mixed drinks and beer and snacks and all those sort of things. So outside of that little bar area was a big floor area. There was a pool table and there were dartboards up on the board. So you had to clean the bar area, you had to sweep and mop the floors, change the trash, do all that sort of stuff. So I'm like an early morning guy because I worked in New York City for 20 plus years where I had to drive in and out. So I was used to getting up early in the morning. So when it was my turn on a Saturday morning to clean, I would go down at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, this club was open 24/7, and we had a really nice eclectic mix of members at the club. We had working professionals, we had people that own their own businesses, we had people who were in construction, we had police and fire, you name it. And so a lot of these people worked weird hours. So it was not uncommon for someone to be down there at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning having a beer and watching Sports Center on the television set. Um, that was not uncommon, right? Just hey, just think about this. If you worked an overnight shift and you got off at 6 o'clock in the morning, for most people that's 6 p.m. at night. So they're going to go have a beer to relax. They're going to have a little breakfast. They're going to watch some television. So if they ever walked in while you were in the bar area cleaning, they were very respectful and they would grab a beer and they would just go right back out and either go upstairs where we had some spaces or they could go outside to a back bar area. So one morning I'm coming around the outside of the bar and I've got a mop in hand and I'm on one end of the bar and behind me is an entrance door into that room and on the far end is an exit or entrance door on the other side of the room and those two doors are probably let's say 30 feet apart. So as I'm running the mop out of the corner of my eye I see this older man, flannel shirt, blue jeans, very vividly, little hunched over, and he's walking around the side of me, maybe 3, 4 feet away. I don't think anything of it. I think it's a club member. He's come in, he sees that I'm mopping the floor. He's going to walk around me. He's going to go grab a beer. He's going to go back out. I don't even break stride. I don't look up. I'm still mopping. But I just glimpse this figure for just a moment, and then I go about my business. Fast forward about 10 minutes later, and I'm now on the opposite side of that room with the mop, and I see the exact same figure in the exact same path walking around the other side of me. And this time, I kind of look up and I take that image in a little better. And it's a full figured, looks like a human being to me with flannel shirt and blue jeans, and I'm looking for probably what's 1 to 3 seconds at the figure before I put my head down, and I look back up within maybe 1 or 2 seconds later, and that figure is gone. Now, there is no way in hell they made that distance between where I was and the exit door. So I look up confused. I look around. I don't see the person. I drop the mop. I run to the door. I open the door. I look into the vestibule area towards the bathrooms. I look at the stairwell going up to the second level. There's nobody there. I run upstairs. There's nobody there. I run outside. There's no one there. I run back down to the bar, go out the other door, look, and there's no one there. And now I'm left scratching my head thinking, what the hell did I just see? And as I think about it, and I'm kind of thinking about the paranormal content that I'd been watching on old school television for a long time, I'm wondering, did I just see what is commonly referred to as a full bodied apparition? Or as Steve from Ghost Hunters once described as a full body, non vaporous apparition? And I'm convinced I did. I'm 100% convinced I did. Now, to add a little credibility again, credibility to this experience I had. Again, this is a subjective experience. I had it all on my own. Probably about a week later, it's at the end of the darts night, and we're kicking back at the bar, having a couple beers, and I'm talking to some of my fellow club members. And I mention what I saw. And immediately, two of them sitting right next to me look at each other. And it's one of those looks where you're like, whoa, maybe these guys know something I don't know. So, over the next hour, several of us talk about the various experiences with the paranormal that each of them had had in the club. Okay. So now I'm convinced absolutely that what I saw was probably the apparition of an old club member that had passed on. And again, this club had been in existence from the mid to late 1930s. So we're talking 70 plus years later. And so a lot of members had come and gone, mainly, been their members for years and years and years and passed away. So it's possibly that's what I saw. Now, there's two kinds of experiences or apparitions or ghosts that people will talk about, and that's an intelligent haunting and a residual haunting. The main difference being is that a residual haunting is like a playback machine. It's like a tape recorder, right? It's recorded history. It's something that happened over and over and over, and the space holds that energy. And so what you're seeing is that playback, if you will, of something that happened hundreds of times over, versus an intelligent haunting, which would be something that could interact with you. So I think what I probably experienced there was a residual haunting. Okay, so let me tell you my third experience. So my wife and I like to day trip a lot around the state of New Jersey, into Pennsylvania, New York, etc., because I'm kind of a Revolutionary War buff, and that area is, well, that's where it all took place, right? One of the original colonies, New Jersey. In fact, the town that we lived in, you could track where Ben Franklin, John Adams, George Washington moved through the area, actually where I lived at. And we had houses that went back to the mid 1600s in that town. And so we would take day trips around the area to visit places. And there's a old mill called the Red Mill in Clinton, New Jersey, where my wife and I decided to go visit for a couple of reasons. One, it's history, right? And that's kind of cool. I enjoy that. But the second thing is that location had been investigated by various paranormal groups in the past, where they had gotten either audio or video evidence experiences at that location. And so we decided to take a day trip there. We go, when we walk in, it's towards the later part of the day, and they're going to close about an hour later after we make entrance. There's two women docents that are there on site. They're both in their late 60s, early 70s. They were very nice. They said, you've got the run of the place yourself. There's no one else here, because a school group had just left. In fact, we were pulling in. The school bus was pulling out. Now, you have the Red Mill itself, and then you have the grounds it's on, and about 100 yards away from the actual mill is an old foreman's shack or building that was there from when it used to be a limestone quarry back in the day. The mill is obviously on a river, right? It had a water wheel, and that's how they powered the milling equipment. And so, about 100 yards away is this old shack, which has since been converted into like a general store. So you can go in there and you can see stuff from 100, 150 years ago. It's a little museum piece to visit. So we do the Red Mill thing. We don't pick up on anything. We don't hear anything. We don't see anything. So now we go out to that shack, if you will, where the general store is at, and we're the only ones there. Now, again, there's about 100 yard, memory serves me correct, about 100 yards space between that building and the Red Mill. And again, we're the only ones on site, and we know that because the docent said that. So my wife and I go into this building, and it had a screen door entrance, I believe on both ends. I think there was two different entrance doors. So we go through one screen door, we go inside, And we're looking at the different displays. My wife is probably 10 or 15 feet to my left at a counter space looking at different displays. And all of a sudden, I hear the screen door open. I hear a voice of a woman. I'm going to describe that voice as like from an older woman, maybe in her 70s or 80s. And the voice said, "Oh, there's someone in here." And then the screen door closes. I immediately turn and look. I don't see anybody. I go right away to the screen door. I open it up and I look outside and there's nobody there. I run back into the building and I asked my wife and I said, "Did you hear that?" And she's basically like, "Hear what?" I run back outside. I do a full 360 around the building and I cover about half the space between the building and the red mill, and there's no one there. I'm convinced what I heard was an intelligent haunting. Open that door, close that door, and say those words. And I'm convinced of that because I ran out and I looked around and there was no one else there. Now, after we get done touring and after I'm kind of excited about this and I explain what I experienced to my wife, we go back up to the counter space where the docents were sitting just to let them know we were leaving for the day. And I asked them, "Did you come out to the foreman shack, the general store where we were just at?" And both of them said no. So, absolutely convinced that was an experience I had. Now, fast forward a couple of years later, and again, being a history guy, every chance I had, I would travel with my wife and my son, and sometimes his girlfriend, now fiance, to various locations around the area just to do a little bit of history stuff. So, Gettysburg is only or was only about 2 to maybe 3 hours away from where we were living in central New Jersey. So we'd gone there a couple of different occasions. So on this time, we went with the kids and we decided to take one of these ghost walks, right? They're kind of kitschy, if you will, but they're fun because not only do they walk you around at night and you kind of get to see things you may not see during the day, but they give you a little bit of a history tour and they talk about alleged hauntings around Gettysburg. And if you've never been there, I highly recommend going to Gettysburg. It's just a lot of fun. Um, so we go on this ghost tour. Now, what I do anytime I go into what's supposed to be a haunted location, and especially if it's a tour and someone's talking, I don't watch them. I don't look towards them. I don't pay attention to them. I just kind of listen to what they're saying, but I look around to see if I can see something personally, have an experience. So, in this particular night, we're doing this ghost walk, and you're outdoors, and we kind of end up over by the famous cemetery where President Lincoln gave his Gettysburg Address. And we are standing in a parking lot as the docent, the person leading the ghost tour, has got a lantern and she's dressed in period dress, and there's probably 15 to 20 people there, including the four of us. And my son has got his iPhone out and he's taking pictures kind of around the area, and I'm just turning and looking. I'm looking towards the cemetery, which is probably 100 feet away, and I'm looking all around the area to see if I can see anything. And I don't see anything at all. I don't see anything that looks like a ghostly apparition. I don't see anything that looks like a ghost or whatever, right? Nothing at all. The next morning at breakfast, my son pulls out his iPhone and he starts sliding through all the different photos he took, and he came up with one particular photo. Now, I'm going to attach it here so you can see it as I'm talking about it. And again, this goes several years ago, and this is like the third iPhone that ever came out, so the cameras weren't great, and we're at night and it's in the distance, but you'll see what looks like the figure of a woman wearing a black dress with like one of those hoop skirts, right? So something that you would have seen in the mid 1800s towards maybe the earlier part of the 1900s. And it's clear in that picture that there's something there. Now, I know for a fact, looking around that evening when those photos were taken, And by the way, that's 1 out of 20 photos he took, and that alleged apparition didn't appear in any of the other photos, just that one. But I know for a fact that night I was looking around and I never saw anything. So the next day we're back out just kind of enjoying the town, and we go back to that area and we kind of look to see if there's anything that could be confused for what we got in that photo, like a bush or a trash can or something, and there's nothing there. So now we're making our way through town and we go back in front of the business where the ghost tour company operates. We're like, hey, you know what? Let's just stop in and see if the docent from the night before, the person who gave the tour, is there so we could talk to that person. And sure enough, she was there. Son pulls out his phone. He shows her the photo and she goes, hold on a second. She reaches under the counter, grabs out a 3-ring binder, puts it on the counter, starts paging through till she comes to a page that's got, I don't remember, 4 or 5 different photos of the exact same thing that my son captured on his phone. So other people have absolutely captured this exact image on their phones or cameras like my son did. So I'm absolutely convinced that's something that he caught, and it was probably an apparition of somebody who visited the cemetery from time to time because a loved one was buried there, I guess. Or I'm not really sure, but I'm convinced it was actually something paranormal. Okay. So those are my experiences. Even though I've been to dozens and dozens of locations that are allegedly haunted, I've never had any other experiences outside of that. But I consider myself pretty lucky that I actually had those experiences. I'm going to do what I always do in every one of my videos. I'm going to leave you with 2 thoughts before I leave you. First, please support your local breweries and tap rooms, especially in this economy today. These are great businesses making great beer. Go out there, spend some time, make some friends, just enjoy your local breweries and tap rooms. Unfortunately, in this day and age, because of the economy we're in and a number of other reasons, which I highlighted in one of my beer episodes, is that we're losing these things every couple of years. So go out there, be a patron, give them your support. And the second thing is, hey man, the struggle is real. Whatever you're going through, whatever it is that you're personally experiencing, it's real, okay? Whatever roadblocks or life challenges have been put in your way, they're real to you. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Let you know there's people out there to understand. You know, don't hold it in, okay? Don't bottle it up. Go talk to your family, talk to your friends, go seek a healthcare professional to kind of get this out, whatever it is that's bothering you, okay? Support your local breweries and tap rooms, and the struggle is real. My name is Matt. This is Beer, Wood, Bigfoot, Ghost, where I talk about anything in one of those 4 categories: beer, wood, Bigfoot, ghost. Thanks for watching today. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoy.